here it is. It's a brief look at some of the historic Connecticut River crossing devices, bridges and ferries. Not only that, but there was a fording place. Columns to the valley needed to cross the river from the earliest times. The first fording places later after canoes served back in the time of the pensions. There was a lot of canoe travel. And then commercial ferry operations followed, and they gave way, as you'll see, to bridges. Typical Yankees. The anxious westbound traveler hollered from the eastern shore, "How did you get across the river?" Man on the western shore of that was born here. I could read all of this. That was Hayden, page 82, WislottsHistory.org site has his old book. Basically, he talks about fording the river and tidal water, etc. Many years ago, doubtless more than 200, this forging place, more than 300 now. The only one in the colony was discovered and used even after the opening of the ferry in 1783. I'm not going to remember a whole lot of numbers about these ferries because, I don't know, given my grayness, I am just not remembering 1733 from 1788. It's one of those, you'll have to go look it up at Google like I would have to. I was really interested in this particular item. The fording place, this is an old map of Pine Meadow. Can we dim down the lights just a bit? There we go. Makes it a little easier to see some of the dimmer slides. Old map of Pine Meadow in 1776, and get my finger out of the way. The fording place, basically from behind Dexter's and Mill Pond area over to Warehouse Point. Initially, ferry rights were granted by the Crown or the Court of the Colony, then after independence by the state governments. The charters usually established the boundaries of 7 miles in each direction to reduce charter holder conflicts. And I saw in one part that they talked about nothing within 4 miles one way or the other. But general typical ferries up to 40 feet long, 11 feet wide, built of hard pine planks, square ends for landing, occasionally tied to a cable and pulley system. There were a number of different ones. You're going to see some of them in here. Larger ones used for transporting loaded wagons and small herds, and smaller craft for carrying walking patterns. And actually, they would have a scow available if one person showed up and wanted to get from one side to the other, they would row that person across. Here we have the first of the Connecticut ferries, 1648, the Bissell Ferry, and we're going to look at where it was located. To get across, you didn't holler across the river, it's much too wide for that. There was a bell, cast iron bell, and it's indicated the bell is now in the collection of the Windsor Historical Society. This was a postcard view of the ferry, and you can see it's just made out of planking across, and it was a rough deck. I don't think you'd want to be on it barefooted. Here's another view, and there's a scow that's attached, kind of a lifeboat arrangement. At some point, regulations required that there be a lifeboat, sort of. both accomplishing. Please remember the lady with the hat. Postcard, and this was back in 1913, and it talks about the ferry and asking a relative if another older relative remembered the old ferry in Windsor. Location: the birthplace of Daniel Bissell, a patriot spy of the American Revolution. I can't pronounce it. It's Macierowski, a relative of Chuck Burlow in our history group in Windsor Locks, owns the Patriot Spy Farm now. And it is south of the Y in Hayden Station, and it's above Mack Road. Mack Road being where the Oliver Ellsworth homestead is. Another one, supplies for the repair of the ferries were kept at hand at most of the locations up and down the river. East Windsor being a part of Windsor early on, they held the landing site at one point, and here is the Bissell Ferry on the back of their 100th Centennial Point. Moving upriver, 1775, ferry operated between Orford, New Hampshire and Fairleigh, Vermont. That was granted by King George III, not the most popular fellow ever. 1785, the first Connecticut River toll bridge crossed at Bellows Falls, and at least 3 ferries were operated by Bradford or Piedmont resident before the end of the 18th century. And there is that first toll bridge. Again, they were usually built of green lumber, subject to drying out, warping, and coming undone in parts. Vermont has a great amount of information available in technology and transportation from 1790 to 1870. It's a great research tool. This is bridge over the river of Bradford, Vermont. It's a location where I camped on a canoe trip, oh golly, back in '86 or so. Excuse me. Over in this area, which is now a little different looking. Hanover Bridge. Number of Connecticut River bridges were covered bridges back in the day. Well, it's often happened on locale. They were port. Middletown, of course, was a very large port. Had the advantage of deeper water back in those days. This is the landing at the end of State Street in Hartford, which gone away. One of the steamer boats over here. And there was the first of the Hartford bridges. There's the old covered bridge, which sadly burned in 1895. The view of the remains on one side, then the other. The ferry boat FC Fowler came up from downriver to get people across the river during that time. And also the Coral from Suffield went down to Hartford to aid in getting passengers across. A temporary wooden structure was built, followed by an iron structure. And here's a view of the Bulkley Bridge under construction. And that was in 1906. Finally, 1908, the bridge was completed. And there it is. And it was used in advertising pieces. My father was a toll collector. And first with the Greater Hartford Bridge Authority, that built the Bissell, Founders, and Putnam bridges, that being in Windsor, South Windsor, Hartford to East Hartford, and Weathersfield to Glastonbury. And also held the Bulkley Bridge and the Charter Road as well, the 5 bridges. My father worked on all 5 of them. The wit of my daughter, who helped with building the slide program, sometimes you have to burn a few bridges to keep the crazies from following you. But her original was, I'll burn that bridge when I come to it. Engineering humor, as it is. Water hazards, there were all kinds of dangers. Floating ice, floating logs, and always the danger of the flood, the freshet, or uncertain current. Extreme drought brought changes to the river levels, creating problems for the ferry. There's a log drive, and you can see there's not much room there for a ferry to go across safely. They usually occurred in the high water in the springtime. They do the cutting in the fall and winter, and then push the stuff out, send it downriver in high water. Major flood of 1927, the bridge was washed off its piers at Bellows Falls. And they have a bunch of bridges. Ice flow, a whole bunch of ice coming down. This is the old suspension bridge area between Woozalats and Warehouse Point, taken from the Warehouse Point side. And then lively livestock. Transporting livestock sometimes created problems. One ferryman explained the difficulty of ferrying sheep. Sheep are the meanest things to take over. They just as likely not get scared and jump overboard, then it's nigh impossible to cut them. Once loaded, the ferryman standing at the end farthest from the shore took hold of the stout wire rope, and then he would drag the ferry across the river. Many of these areas, they're low current, but it was kind of a slack current. It was not a very strong current. Cable ferry includes the terms chain ferry, swing ferry, floating bridge, or punt. And we get to see some of the differences as we go through. There's cable ferry. This one has the ferry cable strung across on poles, and typically it's operated by a block and tackle sort of thing, and or another cable that runs across. Swing ferry, this is the Woozalats ferry, back and forth. We're on the Warehouse Point side. Right here is a pillar. There's a pillar, there's a ferry. This is an old Harmony photo. Photo with photographer in Woozalats. And Chris Turbin unearthed this as part of his canal program. And how it worked was there was a cable.
Okay.
There was a cable that ran from the pillar to the ferry, the ferry would put in at a stone wharf on the Windsor side. You can see it in the larger view here. And it would swing on the cable over to a landing and warehouse point. And it would go back and forth. Reason for this is that it's so very shallow in this side of the river that in low water they wouldn't be able to land the ferry. The fording place, however, is right in this area. And this talks about Windsor entertaining its strangers by introducing them to the interesting little ferry which connects it with Warehouse Point. And this news item was when they had replaced the cable with the new cable. The ford was still necessary, and we're back to Hayden's writing. And they still used the ford in the summertime because there was not enough water to reliably operate the ferry boat. He goes on to describe a crossing, and if you missed staying on the path, you got into some deep water. Here's a little map showing that stone wharf. Here's Church Street, which was called Prospect Street at one time. And this was State Street. And between State Street and Church Street, there's the metal hot mill over here. And Stone Wharf ran up riverways and across. The pier was up by the old Person Brooks factory. It's been an adventure to go out in the summertime and look for some remnants of that.
What town is this?
Pardon?
What town is that? Because you mentioned State Street. What's
Windsor Locks.
Here's a State Street in Windsor Locks?
There was a State Street in Windsor Locks. It was north of where the library is now.
Okay.
And Prospect Street became Church Street, and they moved Church Street around a little bit. As you cross the bridge, State Street was just a little dead-end thing. Meanwhile, upriver, the Hockman Ferry in Northampton. Back up.
Sorry.
Yes, she's there. Over here with her hat. Okay. And most leads you get a view of Mount Tom or Mount Holyoke. There's another picture of it, and you can see scraps of wood picking around and a couple of scows that go back and forth. Pastoral view of Lower Hind Path. Mount Tom, the Connecticut River, an old copper plate engraving from the 1830s. You can see one of the flatboats operating and went up through the canal and got up through the South Hadley Canal into this area to transport on up to Northampton. Smith's Ferry was one of the many ferry operators who navigated the river prior to the construction of the Mueller Bridge and the South Hadley Falls Bridge. South Hadley Falls being down there in the Willimantic area. Another view. Mount Holyoke up in the far distance. A map of Northampton and East Hampton There were changing times here where this was part of Northampton. Later, Holyoke bought this part. Line is up here somewhere. There's a projection of East Hampton and Mount Tom post office is down in here also. This red area had the ferry that ran. And that was above the Holyoke Dam. There's the Holyoke Dam in 1847, which didn't last very long. It was made out of wood. The cribs failed, washed out. It was replaced, but the Holyoke dams are another story for another day. That's a whole another story. The old South Holyoke Ferry. Again, it's kind of hard to tell one from another. They all had pretty much the same design until a later time. And there again, there's the cable that went across. Ireland Parish, southern part of Holyoke, just above West Springfield. And this is from a book by Rusty Clark, all stories carved and stone in Holyoke, Massachusetts. The great ferry connecting the towns of West Springfield and Springfield was for a long time leased to Captain Gideon Leonard, a man ardent in habitual and incurable indolence. I had to look it up. Laziness. He did not tend the ferry himself, but underlet it to Hezekiah Warner and Seth Leonard, who in succession occupied the old log cabin which stood on the bank of the river. Most of the ferrymen lived near the ferry. The old Springfield Toll Bridge was very much like any other of the covered toll bridges. Another view, this is looking from West Springfield over to the waterfront of Springfield. How do you know, go back a minute, please. How do you know which is upstream, which is downstream? The slope is on the front of the pier. That's upstream, and this would be downstream. There was a ferry of sorts, went down and across, ran out of Springfield below the toll bridge over to Riverside Park. It was the Sylvia, the subject of many, many postcards. Even in the nighttime they had pictures of Sylvia. And I hope it's not tipping over. It looks like it's leaning a little bit with all the passengers. William McKinley visited on the Holyoke steamer, the mascot, at the Springfield waterfront below the toll bridge. Must have been a campaign stop. There he is. Another fragile bridge, the beginning of the North End Bridge in Springfield. Fire, smoke, and some 35 minutes later, that's what was left of it. The Agawam Ferry operated from 1869 to 1879. Howard Island, Connecticut. Enfield Suffield, which would travel downriver to the Sound. And again, I put a note to remember the Connecticut River Museum. Lovejoy Ferry crossed from Suffield over to Thompsonville. It was finally replaced by the old iron toll bridge. This is the request of Ephraim Pease in 1868 and 72. Proceedings of the legislature, and they prayed that they would have The ferry moved down to the north side of Freshwater Brook, some 80 rods from where it was. And also that Isaac Kibbe of Enfield would be the suitable person to keep the ferry. And it was so done. And Kibbe built the ferry boat and had a convenient wharf at the landing place. Coming down Enfield, we've got Lovejoy's Ferry up here in Thompsonville. The old Enfield toll bridge, covered wooden bridge here. Here, not shown, but in this area was King's Ferry, which ran across in the area above King's Island, or Carey's Island, as sometimes called. On down to the Warehouse Point Railroad Bridge. There's King's Ferry, operated by Bill King. In the wintertime, they couldn't operate the ferry, but they would cut out a block of ice, make a notch in the ice toward shore, move it down in the open part of the water, and plug it in to make an ice bridge, to be able to cross over the river completely. And they also did that to the island so that they would be able to go out there and cut wood and haul it back on the ice bridge with wagons. There's the old ferry from Thompsonville to Suffield, and of course this is a later one. This is steam powered, and it was named the Coral. This area of Kings Island, between the canal bank over on the Suffield side and the lower part of the island, has indicated that Clint Terry operated the ferry back and forth for his family and visitors. There are no remnants. At one point it was mentioned by Myrtle Fuller that there was a rusty old chain around a tree, which is probably gone well away by now, to which the cable was attached. When there wasn't enough water, this area rarely has more than a foot of water, and you're able to walk from the canal bank over to the island. A rendition of Carey's Ferry indicating he had a little wharf and a cable slung from which he maneuvered back and forth to the island. That's a sketch done by A. Nelson in 1966, found in the files of Roger Board of the West Cross Point Library. More legislation. This one provided for the construction of the first toll bridge, 1793, here in Enfield. Some familiar names: Zach Granger, Timothy Phillips, Isaac Pomeroy, Apollos Pitcock, and Elijah Granger. And it describes what they wanted to do about building the bridge. And there is the old bridge before and after. There it was destroyed by a flood in 1895. Originally built in 1832 from the proceeds of a lottery. It connected Bridge Lane on the Enfield side over to the west side of the river where Bridge Street met. And there's a picture of it. This is over where you come down Bridge Lane, and here's Parsons Road. I assume that to be the bridge toll taker It wasn't indicated as to who that was. There's probably his wife standing there in the doorway to the house. Okay. Could have been Hosea Keith. He was the agent for the railroad at the Bridge Lane Station, which was named at the entrance to the bridge. And he was on the bridge when it collapsed, drove the span down the river, climbed on a roof where he was seen by two railroad employees at the Warehouse Point Bridge, Arthur Wadgett and R.A. Elliott. They lowered a rope from the railroad bridge as he passed below and arrested him.
Bill, this is Mr. Abbey's great-granddaughter.
Right. And my grandfather wrote a memoir of his father, Robert Alexander Abbey, and he talks about that, Cozy Quiche.
Awesome.
It's family lore, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, Southern New England Telephone blocked the old bridge and blew it up, and they used the remaining piers to make a crossing for the telephone cables from Suffield over to Enfield. Now, if you go down Bridge Lane, over the tracks, and look straight out, you can usually see the remnants of the foundations of those piers, and you know they have some trees and such growing on them. This is the old iron bridge and the old keeper's house. It replaced the steam ferry core. This is looking from Thompsonville over to Suffield. Here are the tolls. Each man and horse and load, 6 cents. For each footman, 3 cents. Each lit or draft horse, 3 cents. Each ox or other kind, 4 cents. And then we get to those pesky sheep and goats at, I believe that's 1/2 cent. There's a couple of things, there's a 1/4 cent somewhere and a 1/2 cent. Some of those coins kind of went away. Aerial view of Enfield, Constable area of the Mill Pond and such. Freshwater brook coming out. The ferry used to land right here, and this is the old iron bridge. And there it is. You have to sign looking to the northwest toward Suffield. And vice versa, looking from Suffield northeast over toward Thompsonville, toward Biglow. No date on this. I revisited the original copy of this, copy of the original paper. I don't know when it was. 2 pounds to bridge the line, wanting to put where the old iron bridge was, the remaining piers, to build a footbridge across. Now, I know up in West Springfield, across the Chicopee, they left an old bridge and planked it over. It wasn't suitable for the weight of automobiles anymore, but pedestrian traffic. So they use it as a bicycle path and of course, footpath. Downriver some more, passing the railroad bridge at Fording Place, Winslow Ferry, suspension pole bridge, old iron bridge, and Route 140 bridge. The railroad bridge then and now. There's one older picture of this yet with the steam train going across. The old one, the new one. that.
Sorry.
Here we go. And I just want to mention, again, another story, project in the works called A Tale of Three Bridges. 3 railroad bridges, 3 regular crossing bridges in Windsor locks. And, well, the Dexter Coffin Bridge has only been upgraded one time, and it'll probably be around for a while as is. So 2 out of 3 for it. Leicester has a great amount of history with the old-time railroad bridge, as his father was involved. We had the old ferry, which you've seen before, but alas, this does not bode well for that ferry. And here is the old metal cotton building, and anchor paper mill would have been over in that area. And they are building the suspension bridge. Oops. That photo actually came out of Suffield, which Lester's group discovered and said, no, that belongs in Windsor Locks. And I copied it and said, no, it also belongs over in East Windsor, and gave a copy to the East Windsor group. Here's a stock certificate for Windsor Locks and Warehouse Point Bridge and Ferry Company, a ticket for crossing the bridge, and of course the suspension bridge. You can see over in this area it's low water, and there's not much of it in that area. It was 1,100 feet from one side to the other of that suspension bridge. And it was replaced by the iron bridge. Still operating when they built the other bridge, and then it was demolished. And there's the old iron bridge, the Warehouse Point side. There's the Montgomery building, which is now being refurbished. I don't know how many have traveled through the area, but at nighttime the lights are on in the place. They're moving right along. They've also prepared, done all the groundwork for the new picnic area at the end of the canal trail. So that's been greatly upgraded. And another one, the toll suspension bridge. A portion of the Connecticut Main Highway that we are taxed to use, the direct route from New York to Boston. Is this right for the year 1907? Herbert R. Coffin, representative from Windsor Locks. Coffin in the Dexters, the Dexter Corporation. And thus, lo and behold, July 18, 1908, the taxes, the tolls have been removed from all of the Connecticut toll bridges. Thought to be the anchor stone of the Windsor Locks Ferry, it is at the Windsor Locks Historical Society. You can see the ring that is mounted with lead hammered in around the ring. Maybe. However, I think it's more likely a mooring anchor for the many sloops serving to haul freight to Warehouse Point, which may have had to moor overnight before unloading the next morning. You gotta love that about history, of all kinds of opinions. Skipping down river once more, we skip past Windsor and Hartford, which we looked at earlier, and arrive at Wethersfield and Glastonbury. East Berry, originally Glastonbury, Ian Berry, and Ian Berry also, until it finally became Glastonbury, O-N-B-U-R-Y. The odd thing to find is the research stuff. Here's an old map, and it shows Pratt's Ferry. Pratt's Ferry ran from Wethersfield to Glastonbury. Here's the Ian version. previous information gets into what the dates were for the various spelling. And a number of other odd bits and pieces. At any rate, down around the bend, there's a big bend in that area, we get into what is now not Pratt's Ferry, but the early Rocky Hill Ferry. And by the way, I mentioned somewhere along the way the lady with the hat. Yeah, she's back. Probably the photographer's wife went up and down the river doing the ferry. More statues, and they talk about the Rocky Hill Ferry, Pratt's Ferry. Pratt had more than one ferry, actually, in different locations along the river. Keeney's Ferry in Weathersfield, and King's Ferry in Suffield to Enfield. And it talks about how much would be the fare crossing. And that was in 1821. And it went on, talked about the Scannick ferries, which also was, of course, not the Scannick ferry, but the Vista ferry. Warehouse Point was the locks, and again, how much? Enfield and Suffield, again, how much? 1835, basically the same, but the prices go up. Middletown, the burning of the Middletown and Portland ferry boat. Steam seemed like such a good idea. How's that working for you now? The bridges burn, the ferries burn. Here's one of the Middletown bridges, the Aerodrome Bridge. It had a whole bunch of bridges, railroad bridges, walking bridges, footbridges, and that's another whole study all by itself. And there's an aerial view, there's the Aerodrome Bridge. I think this was the footbridge at one time, that's not there, the railroad bridge is still in there. And there are views, you can get carried away with the number of pictures. Further downstream in East Haddam, the General Spencer, the ferry that came up and helped at Hartford. A view of the riverfront at East Haddam. That's 1914, and there's the General Spencer. And it still has kind of a crude look, even in those days of steam. And here we have the Chester Ferry, 1940 what? I don't know what Ford version that is. There's a couple of those convertibles there. So 1940 something. Here the ferry is brought across by a little steam tugboat. Or maybe in that day, a gasoline engine steamboat. No lady with a hat. How fashions have changed, ladies without hats. I was going to warn you that this would have partial nudity, the ladies don't have a hat. And here's the Chester Ferry, which is still operating. And of course, more modern means of getting on and off the ferry. The steel platform rises and falls to the deck of the ferry boat. Essex to Lyme Ferry. Note the mast on the ferry. Also this device, which could be pulled up in shallower water or let down. The current catches that board, which if it were in the center would be called the center board. And the force of the current against it and the resistance of it being on a cable forces it to cross the river. If there's a good wind, they could put up a sail to provide that motor power. Go back, there's one more thing. See that center divider? Hard to see. But there's an outside, another outside, and a center one to keep whoever's down and on from hitting the mast. So it was really a two-lane boat. The old Ferry Colonial. Old line, it ran from Ferry Road to Seymour Point. That Ferry Road is now the location of the DEEP Boating Division, where I retired from gainful employment and took up historical research. Don't confuse the two, because there's no gainful employment in the historical research. I get out and about, though. And here are a few for fun. Model T being pushed by some kind of a motorboat. Looks more like a floating dock than a ferry. And here we have Company B of, I think it's 6th Infantry, something or other barracks. Anyway, in Rumford, Maine. Tongue in cheek, I guess it's the Maine Navy. Okay, don't do this. Into a gunboat. There are a couple of cannons on the front of this thing for the Pamunkey River War and Conflict. We'll leave it up for a minute if you want to make notes so you can look it up. I don't know what it is. Then, of course, it looks like this car's ready to go off the deep end over there, but you can see another landing on the far side. The end. No more hat tricks. Thank you all for coming. I greatly enjoyed your indulgence. My usual hour and a half program.
I'm supposed to pause the clock, right?